This is an absolute beginner's guide to shifting on a motorcycle. When you first start riding, shifting can be kind of one of the more confusing aspects. So in this video we're going to go over just kind of the basics of shifting gears on a motorcycle. I'm also going to clear up some things I struggled with when first learning to ride. I've taught a few buddies how to ride. They kind of struggle with a lot of the same issues, and I know when on Yahoo Answers and a lot of these other forums, you see people asking the same questions. So I'm going to clear up some kind of misconceptions that people have, and also hopefully give you some tips and tricks that may help you out when you're learning to ride. Shifting is one of those things where when you get it down, you wonder what you had so much trouble with. It's really simple, really a simple concept, but when you first learn how to ride, it can be kind of tricky. So the first thing I'd like to clear up is, unlike a car, a motorcycle shifter, each gear doesn't really have its own place. And what I mean by that is, if you look over at the diagram on the left of a car gear shifter, each gear has its own placement. So first gear is going to be up and to the left. You want to go into the second gear, you're going to drop down. You want to go into third gear, you're going to go up dead center. You want to go into fourth gear, you drop straight down, and so forth and so on. With a motorcycle, that's not really the case. And what I mean by this is this. Say we're in first gear and we want to shift to second gear. We're going to click up to second gear. Say we want to shift to third gear. I think a lot of new riders are under the impression that when you click into third gear, you're actually going to go, say, maybe a half-inch step up and be in third gear, click up another half-inch, you're going to be in fourth gear, click up another half-inch, and you're going to be in fifth gear. That's not the case. You got to think of a motorcycle shifter more like a ratchet. Say you're in second gear, even though you're clicking up, the gear stick is actually coming to the same place. It's not like a car where each gear has its own placement. You're clicking up, but you're in the same gear and the stick stays in the same place. You're clicking up, new gear, but the stick stays in the same place. So that's one thing I'd like to clear up. I think a lot of riders struggle with that. Now when we're first starting out, you're going to want to start out in first gear. So hopefully your bike's in neutral, you start your bike up. You want to get into first gear, you're going to pull the clutch in, you're going to tap down with your left foot. When you can't tap down anymore, you know you're in first gear. Now to get going, you're going to give it some throttle and ease off of the clutch. Just kind of a tip for new riders. It's I think a lot of new riders have a tendency to try to let off on the clutch and give it gas at the same time and wind up killing the engine. Once you've been riding for a little bit, you'll definitely get a hang of this and will take off smooth like nothing. But when you're first getting accustomed to riding, this can be a little bit tricky. So just a tip I'd give you would be give the bike some gas before you start letting off on the clutch. Slowly let off on the clutch, your bike will start to ease forward, and once you start easing forward and start moving a little bit, then you can give the bike some more gas and ease off on the clutch, and if you do it that way, you're not going to kill your engine at all. You want to shift to second gear. What you're going to do is you're going to want to pull in the clutch, you're going to let off on the gas, you're going to click up with your left foot into second gear, you're going to give the bike some gas, slowly release the clutch, and you're in second gear and you're going. When you want to shift into third gear, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to pull in the clutch, you're going to ease off the throttle, you're going to click up into third gear, you're going to start giving the bike gas again, and again you're going to ease off of the throttle, and you're going to do this for fourth gear and fifth gear as well. The next thing that we're going to talk about is how you know which gear you want to be in. This is also a tough thing when you're first learning how to ride. I know I was all over the Yahoo forums, all over YouTube, and the thing you hear over and over again from other riders is you're going to know when you need to shift gears. And once you've been riding for a while, that's definitely true. You're going to hear the engine straining a little bit, you're going to feel the engine straining, and you're going to know to shift up into a higher gear. But when you're first starting to ride, you're having a hard enough time kind of riding and figuring out the shifting. You're not really accustomed to what to listen for and what to feel for. So this isn't necessarily the proper way to ride, but just to get you started until you start getting comfortable with your bike and start getting comfortable with riding a little more, a good rule of thumb, first gear should take you up to between 15 and 20 miles an hour. When you get between 15 and 20 miles an hour, you're going to feel the engine working a little bit harder. You're going to want to shift into second gear. When you shift into second gear will take you higher than 30, but just to keep things simple, second gear 20 to 30 miles an hour. When you get up to 30 miles an hour, you could continue going in second gear, but just to keep things simple, shift into third gear. 30 to 40 miles an hour would be third gear. You want to shift into fourth gear, that would be 40 to 50 miles an hour, and 50 miles an hour and above would definitely be fifth gear, obviously. This isn't necessarily the correct way to ride. All bikes are going to shift differently at different speeds and things like that, but just to get you started and get you comfortable on the bike, a good rule of thumb would be first 0 to 20 miles an hour, second 20 to 30, third 30 to 40, fourth 40 to 50, and fifth, 50 and above. It's easy to remember too, because obviously the mile per hour matches up with the gear number. So that should be a simple way to get riding. Once you start riding and you kind of get a feel for your bike, you can kind of adjust from there. But that's a good way to get started riding. As for downshifting is going to be pretty much the same as upshifting, just the opposite basically. Just a few things to remember when you're downshifting. You're going to hear the term rev matching being thrown around, whether you're watching YouTube videos or forums. And basically what that means, say we'll use the same kind of same theory when you're downshifting, with 40 miles an hour, fourth gear, 30, third gear, 20, second gear, and below that, first gear. So when you want to start downshifting, say you're going, 55 miles an hour, and you want to shift down into fourth gear. Either let off the throttle and slow down a little bit, maybe give it a little bit of brake. Once you get below 50 miles an hour, pull in the clutch, click down into fourth gear, start giving it some gas, and slowly let off on the throttle. I really don't know how to explain rev matching, except give it gas so that you feel. There really is no good way to explain it, but basically once you start riding, I hate to be one of those people, but once you start riding, you'll know when to downshift. But basically you're trying to match the how much throttle you're giving it with basically the engine speed, or how hard the engine's working. Once you start riding, you'll definitely get a feel for that, but it's not really something that can be explained. Just a few other tips when you're downshifting. I think a lot of new riders have a tendency to just pull in the, say you're coming to a red light. I think a lot of new riders have a tendency to just pull in the clutch and just click down to first gear. In certain situations, if a light turns quick on you, that's just the way you're going to do it. It just doesn't make sense to try to fly through downshifting through 5 gears in a 30 or 40 foot area. But it's generally a good idea to shift down through the gears. Now what I mean by this is you're going 50 miles an hour, shift down into fourth gear, go 40, shift down into 30, go 30, shift down to 20, go 20. And the reason for doing this is if the driver behind you, if you can tell they're not going to be able to stop their car, something like that, if you're in the correct gear, you can easily give it some gas and either take off and get away from the danger, or get in that same gear, swerve off to the left, get in another lane. You have options to get out of the way of something coming from behind you. If you were to just pull the clutch in at say 50 miles an hour and click down to first gear and just coast to the light, if something came up behind you and you had to get going, you try to get going, you're in first gear, you're going to kill the engine, you're not going to have any pickup, it's just not going to be a good situation. So if at all possible, try to shift down through the gears. Another tip about when downshifting, just how I explained how you're shifting, when you shift down through the gears like that, the engine is actually going to do what they call engine braking. So the engine's actually going to slow you down. So if you're going 50 miles an hour and you shift into fourth gear, you're going to start, the bike's going to start slowing you down. And that's a good way to slow down and stop. But the one thing you need to keep in mind is when you're engine braking, the driver behind you, you're not giving them any warning or any indication that you're slowing down. So I would say, along with your engine braking and downshifting, make sure you're using your brake too, because when you use your brake, you're giving the driver behind you an indication that you're slowing down or that you're stopping or slowing down to turn. If you're just engine braking and not using your brakes at all, those people behind you, unless they're paying really close attention, have no indication that you're slowing down, stopping, turning. So that's one other thing to keep in mind. I hope this video clarifies some things for you. I know when I first started riding, there were a few things that I just wasn't able to wrap my head around from reading Yahoo Answers and watching YouTube videos. So hopefully that cleared up some of the issues that you might have. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment on the video below, and I'd definitely be happy to respond to it, or possibly even make a follow-up video clarifying some things for you. So be safe and good luck riding. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Thank you.